Hi everyone, can you hear me well? If someone in the event chat box gives me a thumbs up. Okay, great. Hi everyone. Welcome to our first 2022 Women of MENA in Technology San Francisco Bay Area event. We are excited to host our panel discussion today with a discussion on a new era of emerging technologies, one of my favorite topics. We are having amazing speakers joining us today, and I am honored and excited to be moderating this panel. My name is Calantari. I am the founder of Internet of Things Club and a full-stack developer with a background in electrical engineering and telecommunications. I have been with Women of MENA in Technology for 3 years now, where I have witnessed all the positive impacts we have made globally. Before introducing our speakers, let me briefly tell you about what we do at Women of MENA in Technology. It is the only organization in the world with the mission to close the diversity and gender gap in STEM by connecting, mentoring, educating, and elevating Middle Eastern and North African women worldwide. I am part of San Francisco Bay Area team along with Sarvanaz and Nika. We are looking for a team member. If you are interested in joining our team, please send us your resume at bayarea@womenofmenaintechnology.com with your LinkedIn profile and a short bio about yourself. Our team will be writing down all the information in the chat box right now. We are having 3 more events on May 13, July 28th, and September 29th, and a global career fair. Our events will be workshop, fireside chat, and office hours. Our last 2 events might be in person, which I'm very excited. I personally missed seeing faces, and I'm very excited for our future events. We are looking for sponsors for our future events. If you or your company interested in sponsoring our events, please send us email at bayarea@womenofmenaintechnology.com. We also have a mobile application. Please check our website, womenofmenaintechnology.com, to see all the details regarding the membership and how to become a member and join our mobile application. By joining our mobile application, you can be in touch with other members and you can have access to them directly. After this panel, we'll have Q&A at the end of this panel. So please write down your questions in the Q&A section or in the event chat box, and our team will pass them to me and we can answer your question. If you have any question for the speakers, please let us know. And if you have any questions, concerns, feedback, please email us at bayarea@womenofmenaintechnology.com. Without further ado, now please help me welcome our incredible speakers, Evelyn Zoubi, Nika Esfahani, Azalia Mirhoseini, and Deena Shakir to the stage. Hi, Nika.
Hi, Hannah.
Good to have you here. Hi, Azalia.
Hey, everyone. Hi.
Hi, welcome. Let's wait for Deena, and Nika is here, Azalia is here. Deena, I accepted her request to join the stage. Let me see. Deena, if you can hear us, you can request again, and I'll accept your request to join the stage. All right. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. It's really great to have you all here. The topic is amazing. A new era of emerging technologies. It's just been crazy years in the past few years, and how technology is just changing and what we see these days. It's really, really interesting. And I'm so happy to have you all here to have this amazing discussion about this topic. We will start, and then I will ask the same question to Deena and the rest of the speakers when they join us. It's okay. So my first question for you is, please introduce yourself to our audience. I know you personally, but I'll be happy if you introduce yourself for our audience. We can start with Azalia.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Azalia Mirhoseini. I'm a staff research scientist at Google Brain, and I co-lead a team called Machine Learning for Systems, where what we do is to use machine learning algorithms to accelerate and optimize systems and chip design. And our goal is to kind of close the loop, because machine learning has really succeeded because of the amazing hardware and compute that we have. So we want to kind of return the favor and use machine learning to design better accelerators and computing systems. I have been at Google for about 6 years now. Before that, I got my PhD from Rice University, and happy to be in this panel.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for your introduction. Nika, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nika Esfahani, and it's great to be here on this panel. I work in strategic sourcing at Meta, focusing on imaging products. Before that, I was at Apple for about 12 years, also working in sourcing and operations. And I have an electrical engineering degree prior to that, but have worked in supply chain and operations for the majority of my career. And it's great to be here with such a amazing panel of other women.
Thank you, Nika, and that's great to have you here. Deena, welcome to the stage. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Sorry about that. I was having technical issues.
Okay.
I am Deena Shakir. I am a partner at a venture capital firm called Lux Capital. And before that, have done many different things, including a brief foray in journalism, working in the Obama administration in DC, spending about 7 years at Alphabet, initially at Google, and eventually at Google Ventures before joining Lux. And very happy to be here.
That's amazing. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Deena. We can't wait to have this interesting discussion with you. I'm waiting for Evelyn to join. She probably has some tech issues. It's okay. We can continue the conversation with my first question. And then when Evelyn joined, we will continue the questions with her as well. So this whole emerging technologies and metaverse and all of these things that we are hearing these days. We know that, for example, since 2014, Facebook, Meta has acquired several VR startups with more than $1 billion in funding, confirming that it is serious about building the metaverse, and it will be more than one of Facebook's existing tools. Also, other major market players such as Snap, Nvidia, Unity, and Roblox have begun building their own infrastructure for the deployment of such projects. And according to Statista, the AR/VR combined market is expected to reach close to $300 billion by 2024. Now, my question is, maybe we can start with Nika. What are some practices different industries can use when applying AR/VR technologies? And I would be happy to hear other speakers' opinion as well. Oh, hi, Evelyn.
Hi. Yeah,
What
I
can you
think
say?
I had to restart the browser to get on
No
stage.
worries. So maybe before getting to Nika for that AR VR question, Evelyn, would you please introduce yourself
Yeah,
to
sure.
our audience?
Yeah.
Thank you.
First of all, thanks for having me. I am currently a staff product manager at Chegg, which is an edtech company. And prior to that, I was at Walmart e-commerce, and prior to that, I was working in startups. I was a startup founder for a while, and I also worked with other startups. So yeah, that's about me. I'm looking forward to talking more in this panel discussion.
That's great to have you here, Evelyn. Thank you. So I will get back to Nika for the questions. I'll ask the question again. What are some practices different industries can use when applying AR, VR technologies?
Yeah, sure. So, I think the primary use case of AR, VR has been entertainment and gaming historically. But I think over the past few years and with the pandemic and more affordable VR headsets and more lightweight headsets, we're seeing a shift in the use cases of these devices. Some examples of how these devices are being used and the benefits of AR, VR include fitness and exercise. I think that's one very emerging field or maybe industry that we've seen throughout the pandemic with fitness apps like Supernatural, Beat Saber, FitXR. There's a number of apps where you can break out a sweat and get a really good cardio workout using your VR headset. That's one area. I think other industries that can benefit from these devices and this technology include education and training. I think when the pandemic started, we all, many students, educators, and those of us in the industry moved to teleconferencing, video conferencing, and online collaboration tools. But with virtual reality and augmented reality, there can be a better experience both for students and those of us working in industry as well. And it can be more hands-on educational experiences provided through these devices, and further opportunities for development and training. Another industry that I think benefits or can benefit from AR, VR is healthcare. Imagine being a medical student or a surgeon and having the ability to practice some of your skills ahead of having to practice it on a real person in real life. I think there's a lot of benefits to what you can do prior to conducting these things in real situations. And the improvements to the experience that the person on the other side has in having been practiced on someone that has had experience through virtual reality or augmented reality. And another industry that I think will benefit from AR, VR is retail. I think if you can give customers the experience of shopping, but in a virtual environment, and if customers can have that environment, be able to shop, even use augmented reality to get a feel for what certain items may look like in their home or try it on in a virtual fitting room. I think that can be a really interesting application as well. So I think these are some examples of how AR, VR can be beneficial in different industries, but of course, I think the applications are endless.
That's great. Actually, if we have the opportunity of the product that we can try on this clothes and dresses, I think that would be a great opportunity, and they're gonna have a lot of customers. I will buy that for sure. Instead of 3-4 dresses, we can try on like 200 dresses. in less than 10 minutes? That would be great. Thank you, Nika, for
Sure.
all of your insights. I would like to hear other speakers' opinion on this question as well. Deena, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nika's answer was excellent and pretty comprehensive. You know, I tend to spend most of my time in and around healthcare. And so I agree with the assessment that there is a really interesting opportunity in healthcare, particularly around medical education, and as well as, you know, advanced, obviously, interventions down the road. There are also some really interesting use cases actually around therapeutics using VR, in particular, for treatment of different types of mental illness, for exposure therapy to treat, you know, everything from PTSD to certain types of neuroses. So that's actually been really interesting to observe how much traction there's been in that area. So I think in general, the medical space is a pretty interesting application. You know, obviously entertainment has its own set of, you know, of applications there. That's not my wheelhouse, so I won't opine on that. But it does seem like in this new meta world that we're in, there will continue to be more happening, whether it's through lower cost headsets or different types of content production. I've also seen some interesting companies that are actually looking at sort of HR and employee training. There's a company called Praxis Labs, which I had the chance to get to know, and they are training in particular around DEI. So actually enabling more empathy through virtual reality. And I thought that was a really cool use case. And so I think we'll continue to see more of these platforms come to life, especially as both the hardware and software, you know, it becomes more accessible.
Wow, that's interesting. I should search more about that mental health you mentioned. I'm not that knowledgeable about that section. That's very interesting to have these technologies applying to different verticals and different industries. Evelyn and Azalia, Evelyn, do you want to go next? Share your opinion on the subject.
Well, yeah, I've mentioned briefly that I was a startup founder. So it was basically in the intersection of fashion and data. And I feel like I've observed, not that we had AR and VR within our startup, integrated into our features or anything, but I did watch a lot of companies basically try and get into that space. So it's been interesting to watch. That's all I can say. I remember even watching like demo videos about 10 years ago. I think Intel was also rolling something out in, I think, virtual fitting room, that kind of stuff. So it's been like really interesting to watch that space. Amazon is also getting closer to, I think that they're having like brick and mortar stores. So anyway, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that there has been like different ways of like trying to get into the space in the fashion industry. I'm looking forward to seeing where that will get us to. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm interested to see how Amazon going to get into this space. That's very interesting. Azalia, do you want to go next?
I think Nika, Deena, and Evelyn touched on all the like very exciting and key applications that are going to come out of for this technology. One thing I can think of is the future of work, like how teams collaborate with each other, especially as during the pandemic, like we are all on our video like chats and work with each other that way. And it has worked more or less, but I think we can have a much better experience, just like human interactions and feeling like we are all closer to each other, almost like physically in the same room. I think that's something we're missing right now. And that is something I hope that will come out from this technology.
That's very interesting. And Azalia, since you worked in AI, specifically AI and AR/VR is so close and they're so overlapping. And it's very interesting that I was seeing these videos recently, how you can, like in Metaverse, using AI, creating your own land, or just by having a voice saying something and the music gonna play. It's just so amazing.
Yeah.
And talking about AI, Azalia, I have this question for you. I like to start with you now. Well, everyone now is kind of adapting AI, and right now AI is just more than just a single independent technology. It's basically making smart devices smarter, data more valuable, and cloud-based tools more efficient. It's turning AVs into reality. It will disrupt business models, create new ways of working, and facilitate a digital transformation. With that said, Azalia, I'm interested to know what is an emerging aspect of AI that you are very interested about, or you think that would be a big thing, and what is specifically you are very excited about?
Well, I think a trend that we are seeing in artificial intelligence is that we are going from like using data to kind of predict trends better than to this like new trend that's like generating. We are generating images, like you touched on it, in terms of a new AR, VR landscapes. Something that I'm particularly very interested is language models and conversational agents, where like recent advances that we have seen in this domain, especially like large language models, is these advances are amazing. Like these technologies are going to be in a way that we interact with each other, with the web, with the internet, and in the digital world very differently, because and they can have applications across all areas. Like if you have a conversational agent that you can have meaningful conversations with, it can be used in education, in health, in like as a therapist, to help you search better. So it can have a huge, it can have lots of implications on how we live our lives. And I think we are getting there. It's like the trend is at this, like it's very predictable that we are moving towards like having this fully smart and reliable conversational agents. And that's what I'm most excited about.
That's amazing. AI is touching all businesses. I'm very interested to know what is your opinion, Nika, Evelyn, Deena. Nika, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I think one thing that really excites me about AI, since I work in supply chain and manufacturing, is using AI to predict defects, to essentially predict anything that could disrupt the supply chain. I think there's a lot of data that we have access to, but we don't necessarily tap into utilizing that to predict how that could impact our supply chain. So that's something that excites me about AI.
Very interesting. Deena, what is your opinion?
Yeah, it's a big topic. I mean, I think these days when you say AI, it's almost like saying tech to some extent.
Right.
Really transcends everything. And so it's hard to comment like at a very high level. But again, on the areas that I look at a lot, there are, fascinating applications of AI in women's health. For example, I'm an investor in a company called Eden, which is using AI and genomic insights to actually predict the best hormonal birth control for a woman to take. So it's not just guess and check anymore, but actually, can you do the analysis beforehand before ending up with really problematic side effects, not just nuisances like weight gain or acne, but potentially life-threatening side effects like suicidal depression or blood clots. So that's one interesting and unique example. In the food space, I'm an investor in a company called Shiru. By the way, both of these are women founders. You'll see a trend here, but Shiru is founded by Dr. Jasmine Hume, and she's taking AI and computational biology and applying that to the development of novel plant-based ingredients to replace animal protein. So rather than, you know, trying to create the next Beyond Meat or Impossible Burger, she's actually, or the company is enabling the Nestle's and the General Mills and the large food companies of the world to replace individual ingredients in their products, whether it's a gelatin or an egg protein, et cetera, with plant-based products. So it's a really exciting and innovative approach to taking on the climate crisis through food using AI. Really, almost every company that I'm involved in has some element of AI, but those are just two examples.
Wow, that's impressive. And thank you for working with women-owned business and these exciting companies. That was very exciting. And Evelyn, what is your opinion about AI and what excites you the most?
Well, first of all, I'm super excited to hear about Shiro, especially as a vegan. I think it is like the future of like, we basically have to address the climate change and the crisis that we have, you know, because of livestock and so many things that are affecting, you know, the planet negatively. So I think it's really exciting to hear that there's like different ways other than just like creating more, you know, protein or meat substitutes. That Shira is doing that. It's really awesome. Yeah, so what's my opinion on AI? I think it's, I personally, I'm very excited about having AI replace, from a shopping standpoint, let's say, or e-commerce, filters. I feel like we spend time selecting, like, sizing down our choices, and like we have so much data nowadays, so it'd be really cool to see more of that. I think that's going to be the future, like shopping filters will be replaced, and I think shopping experiences in general will be much smarter in that sense. And yeah, I mean, AI again touches down on every aspect of like technologies nowadays, so I can go on, but this is something that just like came to mind that I wanted to share.
Thank you, Evelyn. Yeah, as you said, AI is big and it is touching all industry. I don't think any business right now is not using AI. As Deena said, when we talk about AI right now, it's like we're talking about tech. And it is big and it's very exciting. All of their prediction models, everything that they're using right now. Evelyn, now I'd like to talk about edtech and e-commerce. You mentioned about e-commerce and how AI and basically this customization and using AI for customers would help in the future. We hear these days so much about edtech, and digital education is the new e-commerce. And 13.5% global e-commerce industry will stand at $3.25 trillion in 2022, which means digital education will be 34.67% bigger than e-commerce. And this is great. And it's really, when I was reading this stat, I was like, wow, it's kind of taking over e-commerce, and it's very interesting information. And now my question is, I would like to start with you, specifically through pandemic. How did the pandemic accelerate the future of edtech, and what are the challenges about the quality of the education, and what would limit the progress?
Yeah, sure. So since the pandemic has started, obviously we all know that students have been shifting, or education in general has been shifting from in-person education to online education. And obviously there was like a steep learning curve for like students and educators. And also a lot of new technologies have emerged and evolved because of that, like rapidly in the past 2 years. So the experience has definitely changed. Like instead of students having to go like down the hallway and ask their have one-on-ones with their educators. They started seeking help online. They started having study sessions online. Like the whole behavior has changed, and obviously Chegg is like the biggest player in that sense, in terms of like being the 24/7 partner that empowers students throughout all the stages of like anywhere from like when they start studying in higher education to like, you know, finding a job. So it's been like really exciting for me to be in that space in the past since last year. Yeah. Yeah, that's about it. Did you have a second part of the question? Sorry if I missed anything.
No worries. The second part was like, what are the challenges about the quality of the education, and what would limit the progress having basically using edtech after the pandemic? What challenges you face, your company, or?
Yeah, so basically the market has changed, I would say. I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of Chegg, but I can basically share some of my observations. The market has changed, and students are basically more in need of like mental health support, wellness, soft skill. They need to work on their soft skills. So all of these things that were like more available in person are no longer as available because they're spending more and more time online. And that's why, like, for example, at Chegg, we actually have gone in that direction in terms of like supporting them all the way to like even through one of the services that we have, we help them sharpen their skills to be more relevant to the market. So for example, they can even like past helping them with their homework and exams prep. They also can improve their or study for UX, UI, for example, or engineering, software development. Yeah, so that's the kind of things that the market needs, and obviously they're trying to find ways to accelerate ways of like being more relevant to the market. And yeah, that's I guess this is pretty much it. So I guess like adapting to the changes that students have gone through in the past year and a half or 2 years.
Thank you, Evelyn, for your insightful discussion. It's very interesting because the edtech conversation being a lot like how to have a progress there and how a lot of people are adapting technologies. And basically with 4 of you, I think they can have a product using AI, AR, VR about mental health, and maybe Evelyn's customer can be your customer as well. It's very interesting, very interesting. Thank you,
Yeah,
Evelyn.
there's a lot of cool things that we're working on, so I'm super excited about that. Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Nika, do you want to share your opinion on this subject?
I don't have a lot to share. I think it was really fascinating to hear Evelyn comment on some of the cool things that are happening in the space.
Thank you, Nika. But you mentioned before a little bit about how they can use it in education, which was very interesting. And in MENA school, it's kind of, they can adapt it for students as well, which is very interesting. Azalia, do you want to share your opinion about edtech, e-commerce, how pandemic affected the industry, or how it is overlapping with AI?
Maybe I can comment on the overlap with AI, and that's going to be around customization of education. Because we all learn very differently, and we have different interests, we have different pace at which we learn different topics, and that's like it's very hard to create like curriculums that are that kind of like serve different needs well. And one hope is that machine learning can help customize learning and adapt it depending on the feedback, the interest, and the needs of the student for different subjects. So we can have very, very customized learning curriculums. And that way maybe we can learn more about go more in depth if we want to, or go read or learn about more topics. And that's a very exciting. So already there's quite a bit of work around this topic, but I can only imagine it's gonna get even more pervasive, and we can kind of educate the next generation in a much better way with AI assisted education.
Totally agree. You touch such an important topic. Like, I really personally believe like two things really need to be changed. One, women health. We don't have enough technology work there, and then education. We really need to change the foundation of education, and the future of education needs to change for students. And as you mentioned, customization is very necessary because everyone learns in different ways. And we are seeing a lot of progress these days. I saw a robot that kids under age 5, they can talk to these robots and get data, and basically they have a data of these kids, that what are their interests, and they can help their mental health in that age, which is fascinating. I love talking about technology and their fascinating effect on different people. Deena, what is your opinion? And we would like to hear from you about edtech, e-commerce, pandemic, anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, I think I won't speak on edtech or e-commerce because those aren't my things, but you just mentioned women's health, which if anybody knows me or follows me knows that that's something I could talk about for hours. So, I couldn't agree more that that's definitely an area that has been underinvested in for too long, that has been relegated by investors to a niche category, despite women being 50% of the population. They also control 80% of the dollars in a family, healthcare dollars in a family's household. Women are, generally the chief medical officer of the family. And there is also increasingly more evidence that investing in women's health not only has incredible investment potential for the investor in terms of market returns. There, in fact, was just a piece this week in Fortune about that, but also has incredible impact in terms of ROI for the long-term health of the family. Maternal health is not only important, for example, not to say women's health is all reproductive health, but to take the example of maternal health, investing in maternal health obviously not only helps the mother, but also the baby down the road, and is one of the key drivers for improving population health. We also know that unfortunately, the communities that are affected the most by these inequities in women's health are marginalized communities of color. The White House has called this a Black maternal health crisis. And it is really devastating when you dig into the data. And that's just, again, on maternal health. When you look at cancer, specifically, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, again, completely outsized. And there are issues with bias across the board. I talked a bit about the biases historically in investing. If you look at the clinical research, the data that populates all of the studies that are the foundation for the protocol under which we are all treated are based on anachronistic data that is Eurocentric and from literally generations ago. So when we think about investments in women's health, we think about it across the board, starting with the research and development, making sure that we are fundamentally building solutions based on populations that are reflective of the world that we live in. And then through care delivery, there's, again, a plethora of evidence showing that women's pain is not listened to, that there are so many myriad misdiagnoses, whether it's PCOS and other types of chronic conditions, to, again, ovarian cancer, which is, truly a devastating disease that affects so many of us before we, usually it's diagnosed at a point when it's too late to really be treated. So really interested in exploring how we can do better earlier detection, how we can do better preventative health, how we can help to reduce the great resignation that is driving so many women out of the workforce through physical and mental health. And also many of us are, entering this caregiving situation for parents as well. And so I think most of the women here, maybe it's still on the younger side, but, we will soon be in what's called the sandwich generation, if we're not there already, where we are, bearing the burden of caregiving, not only for children, but for our parents as well. And the pandemic has just been an absolute disaster when it comes to gender equity. Women, of course, not only bearing the brunt, the outsized brunt when it comes to childcare and household activities, but also multitasking more than our male peers. And that is a challenge that I worry about as we come out of this. If we do come out of this, whatever post-COVID looks like, how do we address the last 2 years of damage to the progress that we had been making on gender equity? And I think women's health is a big part of that.
Absolutely, Deena. You opened up the topic that we probably need to have another panel on that topic. It's very important, and I'm so happy you touched that important women's health topic. And this just reminded me of the stats about unemployment during pandemic, how much women were caregivers, and how this affected the women, especially in tech, the women entrepreneurs. And thank you so much for opening up about that and share your opinion, information on that. Deena, I have question I would like to start with you. It's specifically about investing. What questions would you ask before investing in an emerging technology?
Lots of questions, hopefully. Due diligence is really important. I think it really is, it depends on the stage and of course the sector as well. When you think about early stage investing and sort of new cos and things like that, it's fundamentally about the founder. It's about the team. Anyone that's done investing or has looked at decks from, a seed stage, and I'm sure Evelyn can attest to this, to later stage, those early decks almost look nothing like what you'll see at the IPO filing or down the road. So when you're making that investment, you really are investing in the person. I often say the founder has to outlive the idea, and so of course this is like very general. Sometimes when you're investing in very specific types of technology, the IP is enough, or the breakthrough innovation is enough. But at least for me, it's not just at the early stage, really every stage, fundamentally about the founder and about the team. And then, of course, about the market. And so, again, this is going to vary by stage and by the type of investor. So we at Lux have $4 billion AUM. So we are investing out of a very large fund, and we need to really have line of sight to a large outcome in order for it to be meaningful to our LPs, our limited partners. And many of these limited partners represent some of the most philanthropic institutions out there. So it's our duty as stewards of capital for these endowments, for these health systems, for these charitable institutions, to make sure that we are investing in good returns. So a very viable, exciting business. I might be, thrilled to invest as an angel and would probably make a lot of money from that, but it might not necessarily be what we call a venture type outcome. And again, that's not to, insult the company or the market. It's just, in this day and age, it used to be we'd look for $1 billion plus companies. Now you look for $10 billion plus companies. And so that really does limit the scope. And the type of investing that I do, it doesn't really scale because we are active investors. So when we make those investments, which, again, we are very selective about when we do, you get very involved, you commit, you spend time on the board. And so, you really end up working very, very closely. And some of the founders that I've invested in, I work more closely than I ever did in the past with some of my peers, even on my teams at Google.
That's good to know. So it's very important to see what stage of the company is. So, and different categories. Yeah, it's a general question basically, but thank you for your information. I have a follow-up question for you. It's just kind of related to AI. So this is the question, Deena. Do VCs have a responsibility to distinguish between good and bad AI and move the technology forward by only investing in the right AI companies?
Let me make sure I understood that question. Do we need to distinguish between good and bad AI? Is that
yeah? Is this VC's responsibility to distinguish between good and bad AI and move the technology toward by only investing in the right AI companies?
Well, I mean, ideally, you always want to be investing in the right companies. I think it depends on how we define right. I think we have all seen AI developed with bad foundations, right? There's a lot of data scientists and engineers on the call. We know that garbage in, garbage out. So, again, ensuring that you are starting fundamentally with a really robust and rich data set. Of course, that the technology is there, that the quality, that there's been an assessment on that, but also that there are controls in place to mitigate against things like bias, and of course, privacy as well. So there are lots of ways in which we need to ensure that those controls are there. This morning, I was actually meeting with an amazing Middle Eastern woman who has studied AI and medicine and is really focused on the issue of bias in particular in dermatology. We were just talking about this topic in the context of the work that she does. Again, a lot of my answers are going to be more heavily weighted toward the investing I do, which is in healthcare. But I think we've all seen very unfortunate examples of AI bias in the last few years come up, and it's something that we should always keep an eye on. It's our responsibility, yes, to do diligence there. At the same time, one of the challenges, especially if you've been an operator like I have, of moving into investing, is realizing that you aren't the builder. You aren't, you can do everything you can to diligence the company and everything you can to help it grow, but it's not only not your job, it shouldn't be your job, and you're not doing your job well if you're the one who's literally, moving the pieces around. So there's an element of, really recognizing that disconnect, that's part of the job.
Thank you, Deena. For sure, we know you're doing good AI and not good AI, the very necessary kind of investment, which is so fascinating. Evelyn, Nika, Azalia, do you have any opinion on this investment topic? If you want to share, Evelyn, if you had probably different stages in the company, if you'd like to share your opinion regarding investing.
Regarding investing in general or in AI?
Yeah, the investing in emerging technology. If you face something, if you like to share anything about this topic, would be happy to hear.
I don't have anything to share. I mean, I feel like it's been fascinating for me to watch how things have evolved since I started like 10 years ago. I founded my first startup, and things have definitely been evolving. I've been involved with other startups. So yeah, it's been evolving towards investors are getting more intelligent in general, and also startup founders are there's a higher bar for startup founders as well. So yeah, and especially in the Middle East and North Africa, there's a lot of untapped potential. So that's the thing that comes to mind right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Azalia, Nika, do you want to talk about this topic in your vertical, or share any opinion you have on this subject?
Not about investing necessarily, but about good AI. I think it's just most of the times it's, almost always the intentions are good, and I think it's just a lot of checks and balances should go in place to make sure that the AI models are doing the work as intended, in terms of they being biased or being sensible or making sense in general. I think this is a very challenging research topic, so it's not like they're it's an active work, right? It's actively researchers are working on to make sure that these systems are working as intended. But I think overall, I think because they have a lot of positive impact, and hopefully we can make a lot of progress, very strictly focused on making sure that they are benevolent. I am very positive about the future of AI in different areas, even though in each area they can potentially be dangerous if they're not like implemented correctly. But like I said, a lot of work is going on into making sure they work as intended right now.
Yeah, that's good to know. It is true that maybe almost all of the entrepreneurs or any products or service that use AI, they have good intention, and it's all trade-off maybe when they're improving their company, or they're maybe redirecting their company in a way, but at the end it's all good intention. And I'm with you that I'm very hopeful for future of AI. Nika, do you want to have your comments, and after that we can get into Q&A?
Sure. I guess kind of as Deena mentioned, I think investing in technology and the considerations depend on the stage at which the technology is at. And from my perspective, I'm involved in a lot of technology, but for me, in a supply chain role and in a role of bringing technology into mass production, for me, one of the most important topics is that technology scalable? Or is there a path to scaling that to be able to bring it to the market? So that's the thing that comes to my mind, and that would be a consideration for kind of where I'm at and how I'm looking at emerging technology.
Interesting. That's a good way to look at it, if it is scalable. Interesting. And I think when it comes to emerging technology, it's really difficult for the investors to, at the beginning, think about if it's scalable or not, because it's emerging technology and probably they don't have so many case studies. And but this whole topic is very interesting. I personally learned a lot from you ladies. Thank you so much for being here.